Well, boys and girls, it is that time of the year where we gather in groups of 10 or less and we reflect on the last 11 months and go over things that we are thankful for while eating roasted turkey and other really strange foods that early American settlers had to eat because stuffed crust pizza just wasn't a thing yet. And that got me thinking, what am I grateful for in 2020? The strangest year I have ever lived. So in this video, I'll go over some of the things I am thankful for before we all lose our cool again and tackle strangers for the last PlayStation 5 at Best Buy. So welcome back. Now let's get to be grateful. And the first thing I want to mention is, I know it's cliche, but it's the most important thing. My health, my girlfriend's health, my parents' health. The people closest to me have had good health this year, including myself, and I know there's been a lot of illness, a lot of death, even outside of COVID this year, which is kind of crazy, but I just want to get that out of the way that I'm very grateful to be able to wake up and face the challenges I face because I got my limbs working, I got my head working sometimes, I got my heart working, and it's just a blessing to be able to wake up and in this crazy video game like reality and just be able to see where life takes me that day. I'm also very grateful to live here in Los Angeles and in the United States. Obviously, there's a lot of divisiveness this year about politics and about COVID and about all these different things. But being born in South Africa and knowing that other countries, the vast majority, have a lot more challenges and a lot more corruption and a lot more problems, I'm grateful to be in this country and grateful to be here in Los Angeles where even though it's not been the nicest of atmospheres this last year, I love the creative energy and really the weather. So there's a lot of wonderful cities and countries out there. I'm just very grateful to be where I am, and I hope you're grateful to be where you're living right now. All right, now that we got that fluffy stuff out of the way, let's go on to sports and sports cards. And of course, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, it all started in March with Tom Brady coming to Tampa. That is still something that is surreal to me. I still get goosebumps looking at him in a Bucs jersey, knowing his legacy in New England and the fact that he left that to come down to Tampa, which the Buccaneers have been a losing franchise for the majority of its existence. We had some good years in the late 90s and early 2000s, but to go from New England down to Tampa, it's still surreal. And then to get Gronkowski out of retirement to join Tom in Tampa, I still pinch myself because it's like, that shouldn't have happened. And then on to hockey, it's great to see the Tampa Bay Lightning. They finally got over the hump and won their first Stanley Cup championship since 2004. And I watched a lot of the season as well as the prior postseason when they got eliminated in 4 games in the playoffs. They just got swept by the Blue Jackets after tying the record for most wins in a single season. So that was really cool to watch as well. Then in the NBA, of course, the Lakers won. And even though I'm not a big Lakers fan, living here in Los Angeles, if there is a reason for my neighbors to be happy instead of angry and riot, I'm all for it. On to baseball. The Tampa Bay Rays faced the Dodgers in the World Series. And of course, I was going for the Rays to win since they were my hometown. And I tried actually watching playoff baseball. I tried watching the World Series, but going from watching playoff hockey to watching playoff baseball is it's like watching Edward Scissorhands prune a bush compared to watching the bush just try to grow back slowly. I just don't have the patience for it. I have ADD or something. And now on to sports cards. I am so grateful to be back in this hobby because I feel like a kid again. And if you've seen my other videos in the past and my live streams, life has gotten serious. I'm 34 years old and it just seems like the older you get, the further away you get from having fun, right? It's always financial responsibilities and career and relationships and death and all this stuff. And, even being in shape gets tougher and tougher where you have to work harder and harder. And so the window of playtime just seems to dwindle more and more unless you have kids and you prioritize that, which I don't. But this hobby has released that, has rejuvenated my childlike spirit. I kind of feel like Rob Gronkowski, how he probably feels 24/7, where that excitement, that passion has now returned to my life. I'm also grateful that my best friend, Andy, the Fantasy Football Card Quest, has joined me in this hobby and is so excited about creating content about football cards and collecting and investing in football cards himself, because to me, it's never really about the card. It's really about the connections and to be able to have a stronger bond with my old best friend since, when I was 12, 13 years old, stronger now than before, I think is just magical. And the fact that this is a hobby we enjoyed as kids, just like you probably enjoyed this as a kid as well, and you can reconnect to your childhood friends 20 years later, 30 years later, I think is just phenomenal. And that's what I'm experiencing right now, where we'll talk for longer and we'll have more energy in our voices and more enthusiasm now than over the last 15 years since we were working together at Papa John's and going out and just growing up. So that's truly magical. And so I'm really grateful for that, as well as where the hobby is now and its potential next year and going forward. Because if you want to invest and make some money, you could do that. If you want to collect and just have a great personal collection of cards, you could do that. You can just enter box breaks and try your luck. You can gamble. You can have such a great time in this hobby, no matter what it is you're after. But the fact that there's so many options now compared to 20 years ago when I was a kid, I think is just phenomenal. And when you guys mention how you're opening a box with your daughter, WNBA cards, or you are opening a box with your dad or your brother or your friend, and you're just getting closer that way, I think that's where the real magic of the hobby lies. And that brings me to you. I am so thankful for you here in the comeback community. You guys are just so supportive. You get my humor, my very offensive humor. We could laugh together, we could learn together. But again, there's not a single card I would rather have than the connection to you guys, because you might not know this, but this has been a tough year for me as well, just as I'm sure it's been a tough year for you. I was furloughed back in March from my job, traveling around the country for auto shows. And of course, we're in convention centers, and you can't have thousands of people gathering in convention centers due to COVID. So that was released. And then I was teaching financial coaching, which I still do. But it was not nearly as fun, right? It's something that's very dry, but it's not something that was bringing a smile to my face, even though it was fulfilling. And so that, plus my girlfriend has been overseas for about 6 months now. We've seen each other about 10 or 12 days since December last year. And that's been really tough because the borders have been closed. She's been dealing with the death of someone close to her. And so you guys are my community, Andy and you, and I have a few friends here in LA, but when I see your DMs and your messages on eBay, when you're looking to buy some of my cards and all this stuff, man, I hate how cliche it sounds and how hallmarky and Disney it sounds, but what I'm so thankful for is you. And I can't wait to meet you in person one day, because that is what I really am getting from the hobby, is the connection. And I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. You have made this year great. It's not any cards, it's not the hobby itself. It's us talking about it, it's us connecting, us growing, us learning. And I'm looking forward to a lot of that next year as well. Now, I can't wait to see what 2021 brings us in the hobby as well as in life. I hope it's a lot easier of a year, not so much divisiveness and pain and all that stuff. And I hope it's a lot just more positive. But do me a favor and leave one thing you are grateful for in the comment section, especially if it's sports card related. I'd love to read it. Also, if you've not yet heard my story, my favorite sports card story from when I was 11 years old, I go over that up here, and it's the reason why I have an affinity towards Kobe Bryant and his cards. So I'll see you over there. Have a wonderful holiday season.